First of all, how are you? Because we are living strange times with all this pandemic thing. Everything
Oh my
it's
God,
okay.
yeah.
It's okay. Family.
Yeah, I mean, we're safe. We're okay. We're doing fine. But of course, the professional or the music situation sucks. You know, we can't go on tour. We can't do any concerts. So that's terrible. But at least we can work on an album and we can release an album. And of course, we are releasing the new album "Too Mean to Die" on January 15th. So that the fans have at least something. They cannot see us live right now, but at least they can get the record, you know.
Of course. I remember in that conversation you explained that at least in 2 years there is no new album, and here we are 2 years later to talk about the new album. Your plans work perfectly.
Well, I'm German. What do you think? I'm on time. I'm like a machine.
Good answer. That that there's this feeling about German people that it's very honest in the plans and
I know they're
sorry.
robots. Yeah, I know. We're robots. We're like machines. We don't have any feelings. We have no humor, and we just work every day on time. That's what we do.
It works usually this way. Not
I don't know, man.
not the improvising or of some Latin countries.
I guess everybody is different, and you are what you are, and I can't help who I am. So I'm. That's okay.
But the circumstances are very different right now than 2 years ago with all the virus. In the first times of the virus in March and with the lockdown, one of the songs that sounds in a lot of metal radio shows and in general, I'm sure, listening metal fans is "Pandemic."
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? And I noticed
it's very prophetic.
I know. We recorded this 10 years ago, and here we are. There's an actual pandemic. So, I mean, it's funny. I guess a lot of people Googled the word pandemic, and the video came up. And I don't know. We had 1 million hits or 2 million. I don't know. A lot of hits all of a sudden. Which is great.
I remember different, and of course, in our radio show, the sounds in that times. But listening different radio shows, websites, etc., appears everywhere. It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, don't blame us for the pandemic. We just wrote that song thinking it's a fiction, but all of a sudden it's reality. It's crazy, huh?
It's crazy. We are living on certain times, and the album will be released in January, as you mentioned. I guess it doesn't change so much. I think that the situation, will be more or less very similar than we are now in November. And the question is this good times to release a new album with no change for touring, lockdowns, etc.? What do you think?
Well, that's a good question, and honestly, we've been asking ourselves that question. But in the end, we decided it's probably better to give the fans at least the album instead of postponing everything. I mean, you as of course as a band, you would always prefer to have the album and the tour together because it's better for ticket sales and the whole momentum of the album. But we don't really know when we can tour again. So, you would have to push it back and push it back and push it back. And we thought, well, the album is ready and let the fans hear it. Why not? And then if they have to wait to see us live in concerts, that's okay. It has to be that way. We have no choice really. But, postponing everything is not a good idea either, maybe.
And the thing is, postpone. It's an option to postpone the release, etc. But it's very uncertain in which is the point that this ends.
Exactly, and it might never. I mean, I'm hoping it will end, and I'm hoping definitely there will be a way that we can do at least some shows in the near future. Right now, I'm hoping for the summer festivals. We actually have some festivals booked, like even in Spain, in Barcelona, and in the summer of 21. But do we really know 100% that they're going to happen and how they're going to happen? Not really. I mean, we're all just hoping, right? So it's such a strange time right now.
I'm sure it's the same for all the festivals in Europe, but there is a lot of rumors that I hear here in Catalonia about that festival that you mentioned in Barcelona Rock Fest, that it's impossible to happen next year because I don't know. So maybe the vaccine is ready and available for all the people, but the rumor says that it not happen festivals next year in any way.
Wow, that would be terrible. But if it is so, there's nothing we can do, right? I mean, because we already lost 2 seasons. I mean, this summer, and we already lost the headline tour that we wanted to do in January. That's going to be pushed back. So if we lose the whole summer of touring, I don't know how many bands are going to survive, because really musicians are, they depend on playing live. I guess that's where you make your income, and that's what you're there to do. I mean, we like making records, but we really the main job is to play live.
Bands, promoters, technicians. I'm sure that a lot of people are suffering this, and maybe don't survive to follow with the activity in the next years.
I know it's terrible, especially the whole, the technicians and all that. That's terrible, because at least musicians, they have some residual incomes from record sales and all that. But I mean, touring crew people, I don't know how they survive. I mean, a lot of them are just going to they have to take different jobs or do something else. And when the time comes for everybody to go back on the road, I don't know that there's going to be enough people then. I don't know, man. It's so strange.
And talking about the new album, it had been composing during these pandemic times, or maybe most part of the songs are composed previously.
About 60-70% previously, and then we started recording the first half of the album in March, and wanted to do the second half in the summer. And so in March we had about 6 or 7 songs that we had more or less finished. And then when we wanted to regroup in the summer, our producer Andy Sneap from England could not come and travel to the United States to finish the recording with us. So we had no choice but to work with him through the internet on a laptop, basically like a Zoom call kind of thing. About 4 or 5 songs were finished during the lockdown or the pandemic.
You mentioned, but my next question is about if this, the lockdown, etc., affects the way that usually AXAB record a new album, and of course affects.
Yeah, it does affect it, of course. I mean, in this case, it was mostly the producer who couldn't join us. But another thing, for instance, we shot a video for the song called The Undertaker. And our guitar player, Uwe, lives in Germany. And we shot the band here in Nashville, Tennessee, in the United States. So he could not be in the video, It was strange. And like a photo session, we have to do like in Photoshop. We have to shoot a picture of Uwe in Germany and the rest of the guy here, and we just have to put them together. It's strange times, man.
A lot of musicians that I'm talking in the last times promoting new releases are explaining the same, that the promo photos with Photoshop, recording via Skype or Zoom. Come on.
Right. It's crazy, man. The only good thing is most of us live in the United States, and the drummer is here, the bass player is here, the other guitar player, and Mark Tonillo lives in the United States, so we can all work together as a band at least. So that's good, because I mean, when you live that far apart that you have to just do everything per email and can't even meet in person, then it gets really, really difficult.
Yeah, of course. I have only the 11 songs and no info about the different aspects of the album. Tell me about a little bit about the production and recording, the studios.
It was recorded here in Nashville. We have our own recording studio in my house, and that's where we work, and we did everything here. Like I said, Andy Sneap came over for the first half and then wanted to come back, but he couldn't. So he's the producer of the whole project for sure, and he mixed it at his studio in England, the Backstage Studios. And that's the normal way that we work. He always mixes it alone and just sends us test mixes. So that was okay. That was business as usual. But so, I mean, it's pretty much, we worked, except for the fact that he couldn't be there for the last half, we worked like we always do, which is here in Nashville. And the way that we write the songs is that, I collect ideas, and then when I have some sort of basic song structures ready, like a proper playback and an idea for the vocals and an idea what the song could be about, then we call in Mark, and he comes over and, puts down final vocals and final lyrics and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Andy is one of the, in my opinion, one of the big names producing metal bands, and it's always a stamp of quality in
it is.
How a band sounds.
Yeah, I agree, and I think he's done a terrific job on this new album. I mean, he's always done an amazing job. He's killer. He never delivers anything that's just mediocre. It's always great. But for some reason, on this album, there's a certain extra quality and an extra spirit on there. Even in the mix that he's done, I think he used I don't know, it's a little more refined even. And, I think, I mean, maybe it's the fact that we had more time because of the whole lockdown, but for some reason, I believe this album's got an extra vibe and an extra quality to it.
Mm-hmm. Talking about the songs, for example, one of my favorites is the first one, Zombie Apocalypse. It starts like an anthem and contains a good riff, and it's very recognizable. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. That makes me happy when you say that, because that's what we're going for. When we think here, when we look through the ideas and the riffs and all that, if we all look at each other and say like, yeah, that sounds like old school, except from some other time, then we're all happy. That's what we're going for. We're always trying to find songs that sound like typical Accept, and that could have been written in the 80s, but they've never been written. They're written now, and they're fresh and they're exciting. And we use those old school song ideas and give them sort of a new spin, and a new production and a new sound. But the core of the song is supposed to sound, or at least remind you of old school stuff,
Mm-hmm. Another one is How Do We Sleep? Maybe, in my opinion, the most epic and interesting musically.
Really? Yeah, we called that. That's an interesting song. We didn't really know. We struggled a little bit with that song initially. Didn't really know where it would go, because it had an interesting vibe. We always called it the Irish song, because it's sort of starts with this Irish folksy sort of vibey melody. We all found it really interesting, and we thought, wow, that's different, that's cool. But we didn't really come to grips with what that song should be called and what should it be about. So we wrote like 3 or 4 different sets of lyrics and ideas for the chorus until we finally came up with this one, which we all like.
I agree, because with Irish music, I think it happens the same like with classical music. There is a strange connection with metal, classical music, Irish music, in my opinion, and this kind of mix, it's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Hmm.
But I think in the end it sounds interesting, but still like accept, and that's always a good thing. You definitely want it to be recognizable. I mean, the criterion is always when you put it on, does it, and you don't know who it is, or you have never heard of the song, that does it sound like accept right away? And
Hmm.
that's good. But at the same time, you want to expand a little bit. So if something is slightly unusual and outside of the realm, that's okay.
Hmm.
And this one certainly is.
Talking about another song, the lyric for "Sucks to Be You" is very interesting. Dedicated to someone?
Well, I don't really know. That's a song that was written by our new bass player, Martin Motnick. The majority of that song, or a lot of that, was written by him. And I think he wanted to write it about Donald Trump, but then I think then I think Mark Tornillo changed the lyrics slightly to make it less obvious. I think he changed it and twisted it around because to him, he wanted, he didn't want it to be about Trump. I don't know. But
I
you had to
I can
ask him.
understand if it's dedicated to Trump, in my opinion.
Yeah, but officially it's not. I think you have to use your imagination, I think.
Okay. Uh, Not My Problem reminds me a little bit more hard rock style than heavy metal, as it's usual in your music during your career.
Yeah, it's a typical fat, easy-going, fun song, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Hmm. And the final one, Samson and Delilah, I think could be a surprise for the fans. For me, it's a kind of a link with your love for classical music. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this song, we were debating if we really needed this on the album because it's an instrumental and it's classically based again. But Andy Sneap was the one who sort of said we should add it on. I wasn't quite sure myself, and I was open, yes or no. It didn't matter to me because I could have used that song on an upcoming solo album one day, but he felt it was a good addition and he thought it would round off the whole collection of songs. The whole album would be a nice outro song or something. And I think that the key why is because it doesn't really sound classical. It doesn't have any strings. It doesn't really, I mean, unless you know where it's coming from, you would never know. I think it sounds like a typical metal song. It's so heavy. So it doesn't really sound like foreign or not fitting. It sounds like it's an accept song.
Hmm. As I mentioned, I don't have any more information from the label about the new record. Tell me a little bit about the artwork and cover. Who did the work?
Oh, the album cover. Yeah, the album cover was done by our good friends, the digital artist Jula Havanjak. It's a Hungarian name, which is impossible to pronounce. But he's done work for us before on the last album, and yeah, he's done several things for us. Great guy, and we just thought again the idea for the cover was from Gabby, my wife and our manager up until now. So we were thinking when we had the saying "too mean to die," she thought of a snake for some reason, and we looked at different images of a snake and thought, oh, that might be cool. And we told our digital artist to make it, a mean monster mechanical snake, and I think he did a great job. I think because what we wanted for the cover is something iconic and simple, like we've had many times in the past.
Yeah.
If you look back at some previous album covers, we had, of course, Metal Heart, and we had the bull from Blind Rage. We had Blood of the Nations, which was the two fingers covered in blood. So something simple and memorable would be good, we thought.
Hmm. I would like to talk a little bit about your current lineup for two reasons. First of all, there's no new in a metal band. We can find three guitars, but it's not the classical lineup of a metal band. But how do you feel playing and working and recording with 3 guitars?
Well, recording is really not that much different from before because we've always used many guitar tracks. Always, there's never just 2 guitar tracks. I mean, there's the rhythm tracks, you double those, and you have overdubs left and right and everywhere. So that part pretty much stays the same. But on stage, I think it's great because all of a sudden we can do twin guitar solos and have a rhythm guitar in the background. And we can do riffs with all 3 of us, which sounds even more powerful. And we can do parts that we couldn't do before, like certain overdub parts that are usually only on the record. So I would say it opens up a lot of possibilities for us. And because of that, because Phil is such an amazing player, and we discovered what a nice guy is, we thought, this would be a good addition to the band. The reason why we found Phil, or how we came up with the idea, is mainly because we did this tour with orchestras in last year. And during that tour, he was the guitar player because Uwe was not available. Mm-hmm. And we found what a fantastic player he is, and how easygoing he is, and what a nice gentleman, what an easygoing personality he has. So we thought it would be a shame to not use him again and again in the future, and that we thought, why not have 3 guitar players? It's unusual, yes, but I think it's actually very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And talking about the lineup, I'm sure you answered this, but it's a question that still is in the air in the fans, I think, during the years.
Yeah. Peter.
Talking about not only
I know it.
Not only Peter, but I announced in our social media that this conversation, and if fans want to ask something to you, and one of the most repeated questions, and especially I remember a text from a guy called George Jordi, explained I love Accept all the eras. I love this band. But in my opinion, with only Wolf from the classic era of the 80s, maybe could be better, we don't know, change the name or the new Accept or something like that. And I follow the guys in the same way, but it's not the same. And I think it's something that shows this mentality of metal fans, very conservative with their bands, their music.
Yeah, I know. I could totally understand it, and I would maybe even feel the same. But here's the deal. I mean, I've joined this band 44 years ago, and I've just never left the band. Everybody else has sooner or later left the band, but it's not my fault. I just never left. And if people decide to leave, the train keeps rolling, because I think Accept is a brand. Accept is a working band that's been established now for over 10 years again, and we make new albums. And if you would only accept, no pun intended, if you would only accept bands in the original lineup, then there wouldn't be any bands, because I mean, there's no band that doesn't have any member changes, except for maybe U2 or maybe, I don't know, Aerosmith or somebody like that. But everybody else, every metal band goes through changes. And it's, of course, a judgment call. At what point do you say it's no longer the band? Is it when the singer leaves? No, because we worked with a new singer. And it's every time that anybody leaves, it's always said, well, they can't go on without him. But guess what? It goes on now, and we have a brand new album. And yes, I'm the only one, but why should we call it? I mean, what should we do? Should we call it quits and stop making music? No, of course not. I have a certain responsibility to keep going, I think, because there's many fans out there who enjoy it and who enjoy listening to the new albums. They enjoy the concerts. I have a band who is really happy to play. So it would be crazy to stop performing on just because a few hardcore fans think otherwise.
I understand your reasons perfectly, and it's truth. Maybe one or two bands are with the same lineup, and I can remember right now one band without a change.
I mean, and the other thing is, I mean, to me, a band, if you think about it, a band is not so much different from, say, a company that, you know, that gets formed. Look at maybe, I don't know, Apple or somebody. You know, there's two friends in a garage that start the company, and they grow and grow and they keep going, and one day even the original guy dies, but the company goes on. Okay. And does it mean Apple is any different than it was 20 years ago? And oh no, it's not the original Apple anymore, you know, but it still goes on. You know, it's just with music, people are so attached to the idea of people staying together forever, but it's not how real life works, unfortunately. And it wasn't my choice. If I had a choice, yeah, I would still be all the original members, but life dictates otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Now that we are talking a little bit about this part, a little bit out of the music, recently I think you have a management change. Mm-hmm. This is also a very important aspect for a band, because to be under control all the business part and to be in a good hands. I suppose this is the reason for a change like this.
The reason is because Gabby has been doing it for 40 years, just the same. I mean, she's my wife, and we've been in this together for all these years, and she finally found somebody that she trusts and that she likes. And so there was this slow transition to a new person who's going to take over the day-to-day operations. Yeah,
that's the work, I think. Trust in this part of the business.
Absolutely, part. Yeah. And you know, Accept has always been, in a way, a little bit of a family-operated business. You know, we've never had the big management company in New York, or, you know, the big outside people. We've always been a very closed circle inside, almost like a family. So we now found a person we trust. And by the way, one of those people in our little family is Andy Sneap. And once you find people that you really like, you stick with them, you know.
Mm-hmm. In our conversation, one last question. In our conversation 2 years ago, we talked about the release of Back in DVD. Now a lot of bands are doing streamings because it's not possible touring. Maybe Accept is thinking in something similar, a live streaming presenting the new songs, for example.
Yeah, maybe, but maybe not. I mean, it's such a different thing, to be honest. It's almost like watching a video, and a live show is a live show, and it lives from the energy in the audience on stage and the connection between the two. So just watching it on a computer screen, I don't know. It's not the same thing. So I think we're going to wait until we can do a proper metal show.
I can understand perfectly.
All right. Okay, my friend, it's been fun.
Okay.
Mucho gusto.